Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's David Palmer, Leo King, and you're live for After Dark, the spiritual talk show here on highvibe.tv. Make sure that you join us. We have so many awesome apps that are free for you to download on iOS, Android, and of course you can get on Roku and Apple TV. And of course we have an awesome website where we have all this amazing exclusive content, and we have shows like this that are out for you. Please support us. Also, we have amazing updates to the apps. Notifications are coming out literally tomorrow. On Scorpio, like literally. So app notifications, and we are going to have in-app purchases in the apps that are coming out in the next week or two. So much awesome stuff. We've reformatted it, and we're also reformatting a new theme for the website. A lot of cool stuff here on High Vibe. And tonight we got a lot of awesome high vibe people in the house. We got Sarah Paasch in the house. We got Jax Atlantis, and we got Dylan the Spirit Advisor. What's going on, everybody?
So good to be here. It's like family.
Seriously, it's awesome. It's been like the perfect energy tonight starting out.
Well, this is Jack's first time on After Dark.
That's so weird,
Welcome,
though.
Jax.
Yeah, like it doesn't feel like it's your first time.
I'm so excited for this alchemy.
I agree with that.
Well, you know what? It's like a perfect alchemical mix now because we've got human design. Like, I'm just taking main specialties.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we all do it all.
Yeah.
Master Tarot. But we're both the astrologers, so.
Shadow work.
But you guys shadow work, yeah.
Yeah, this is the school.
It is. It is.
Crew.
And as Dylan said, it was like we were the Jedi Council tonight.
And we finally have 4 elements here now.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no, you didn't. He's so right.
Weird.
Fire.
We were just waiting for air to pull that together.
Yeah.
Water.
No, this is cool. So I don't even know where to begin tonight. I feel, Sarah just said right before we went live, like literally, like I just feel like in the last 2 hours we just went through like, what'd you say? Like lives?
5 days.
No, I'm like, how many days did we just experience in the last 2 hours?
Yeah, the time thing has been getting me continually like, whoa, in a weird place. But I think that what is now here is ball game. I know it's an irony that tonight was the World Series first game, but it does feel like the World Series of this whole mission spiritually is beginning.
Game on.
Like it's full game on. Like there really is no more. I don't know. It's not a negative thing, but it's just not like a lot of messing around anymore. Where are you guys at with all that?
Guess it's my turn. I would say there's an offer out right now in the universe. There's an offer that essentially we can either do what we know will make us comfortable but miserable, or we can essentially play the game the right way by just sort of stepping out of it completely and being who we really are. And it suddenly starts tearing down all these walls, which looks like chaos, but really that's just the process of creation and destruction, like in perfect unity. Like it feels like the universe is like, even when mysteries still happen, they're not going to be, that's not what this is all about now. Like, you know who you want to be with, you know what, career you want to move into, you know what life path you want to take for yourself. It's not really a mystery. And if you're saying it's a total mystery, then it feels like there's just some kind of work there to do, because it might be more difficult to recognize it's a mystery, but it's the truth, like that you're free.
So that ends our show tonight, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on After Dark.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you all later.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mic drop.
That was a good mic drop. Way to
How do we drop
first
the mic on
episode ever for Jax, and just coming in and just kaboom.
That was so great.
Mic drop.
I feel like to riff off that, I agree. I totally agree, and I'm getting such a similar imagery. I'm also getting kind of this. It's exciting though. It's really exciting because there's this duality, and it's so edgy. On one side, it's like all of the pressure and the daunting kind of doubts, and just like there's no way. And it's, when you're like right about to make that last step, every last block that could possibly come in comes in.
Yep.
That's what's coming in, but it's all invisible and like kind of psychological. So it's this pressure to like really like check yourself, like how much work have you actually been doing? And there's like, I had like this amnesia. It was like an identity crisis almost. Like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Who am I? But really, it comes down to being like, yeah, I'm doing this. This is who I am. I'm so clear on that. And it's the final game, the World Series of just owning that, showing up for that, having faith in that, and the final surrender of like, I'm in, I'm all in. And then boom, it can come. And really this, vigilance of where I'm putting my energy in my mind and where I'm putting my energy in my days. And it feels like we have to do it all. And all of a sudden it's so clear all these things we have to do for everything. But the truth is that's not true. Like we need to do something to move forward, but we don't need to do it all. So prioritizing has felt important with this energy. Yeah.
Can I riff off that? So yeah, I would actually say it's been kind of crazy because for me in my personal life, with all of the abundance and crazy breakthroughs that have been happening recently, this morning I had this huge bout of like unworthiness that rose to the surface, this illusion of it. And it was crazy because it was as if there was just so much going right that it's like that was its last ditch effort to try and like bring me back down. But it's just like even though it's not an easy choice, it is a choice. Like
it's a choice.
It is a choice to say, you know what, no, I'm absolutely worthy.
Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely. I think we're actually having to get a little bit more subtle with how we're choosing our influences, as we've brought up. And I think that at this time, it can feel really good to be doing the same things you've been doing, because you're like, oh yeah, this is what assures my success in the Capricornian, patriarchal, logical, left brain, whatever you want to call it, way of doing things. And yet there is a deeper resonance with at least one thing or one person or one group in your world that has a higher octave of your own frequency, that brings out that alchemy and that magic that creates new opportunity spectrums for you. And it's a very fine line, I feel. As much as we have to really dedicate ourselves in a new direction, it's not necessarily like, boom, there's this one thing that I'm going toward. It's like we're still in the same matrix that we've been in. We have to feel it out in a more refined and discerning way. What really gets the most out of me? What brings out the most power, beauty, creativity from my spirit? Is it this group? Is it this pursuit? Or am I just going to stick with the same scheme that may feel safe, that may feel productive, that may feel like it's moving me forward, but it's lacking, it's tinny, it's lacking that core stability that we need on a moment by moment basis in this energy. So, yeah.
I like that you brought up moment by moment and then test. It's not even test. It's just, there's a lot of like, oh, is this what it is? No, that's not what it is. Like, so shows up really fast. Mm-hmm. And then if you continue to go, I like how Jax was using, like, you already know. You already know. This is where I think now that the sun in Scorpio is going to amplify this Mercury and Venus in Scorpio, where it's like, okay, now there's going to be the clarity that is going to have to come out now about what you do know. Because I think there's a lot of people holding their cards. It's like everybody's holding their cards a little bit, like not really fully ready to like reveal because it's sensitive. There's a positive part of this though. There's shyness with love, beauty, and great things. There's like a shyness of like, should I really? And it brings up maybe the illusion of unworthiness. It brings up, this is what this is. It's like, you're going to drop your cards and show what you're going to do. And with what you already know. But it's like some people are delusional with this, right? Like they can create like these just, like this is more of a savior thing. And I think that's what is not good, is when it's like they got a savior complex. But I like how Dylan says it's this alchemy, this magic that it brings out of you, but also reaffirms within you. and it comes from a space of self-security within yourself, and that it doesn't have to necessarily be this like attachment to it or losing yourself into it and getting lost in old ways of like old patterns that you've done before in connection. But there's a shyness to what I feel this knowing is, because you almost, this is the great test of intuition and the end of the mind's games.
So what is shyness?
Innocence.
Well, yes, it is. It's like this overwhelming feeling of love in this new direction that you haven't plotted the course before. You're not well seasoned in this new area, but you're feeling so much activation and so much connection to something. And I think if this is still a mystery to you, if you're listening to this and you're still like, I don't know where this is landing in my life, just watch yourself in different contexts. If you're sitting at that job, or, even if you work for yourself and you're sitting in that same position you've put yourself in over the past 2 or 3 years, and you're like, yeah, I'm good at this. I know this is going to work out for me. But if there's another context where you're feeling, maybe even a bit of challenge or friction or difficulty, that's probably where the gold is. That shyness is actually that love within you just waiting to erupt into form once it has the permission to do so, which is you actualizing and recognizing where that belongs, where that emphasis really lies. And I think Scorpio, as much as it has this edge, it's actually one of the best signs for dialing down to what we need to surrender in order to really realize our greatest self. It's such a transformative sign. It's such a deep sign. And I think I've heard some people say there's like 7 or 9 different archetypes that go with the Scorpio sign, because it goes through so much transformation. And it's like, okay, maybe the place in your life where you're feeling the most challenged or the most awkward or the most unsure of yourself is actually where there's the greatest payoff, not to use a patriarchal, form to say that.
Beneficial,
yeah.
Why not use a patriarchal term? I feel like, why not? I also feel like there's this questioning available right now where it's like, no, let's use the terms, but let's use them on our terms.
Yeah.
Let's use payoff, but let's redefine payoff, shall we? Yeah. And I feel like for the Scorpio essence in this is kind of like using that power, that fuel, that drive, that focus. It's so intense. And it's like, where are you directing that? And what will, what layer of will, what level of will? Is it this lower octave, animalistic, just competitive, survival, instinctual will? We all have that. Right. And that's being so activated, I feel like collectively right now, the competition and the survival, it's just up. And so it's that comes in, and that feeling isn't just fear. It's it's intense. It's that scorpionic, flood of but if you have an anchor of purpose or intention, or if you've been doing the work, so you're there's something in the background that can say, yeah, fuck the system. I'm going to put all of this into something else. I'm going to take a risk and go all in World Series on something else. And I feel like if we all did that right now, we could just shatter the matrix and just change the whole game.
Yeah, I think using the terms is still okay. I also believe though that, if you take, we'll just take what I guess is proven, that the dinosaurs were on the planet and there was an asteroid that took it over and the whole Earth basically kind of reset. There's something, though, that says that there are systems in place that are meant for change, but that doesn't mean that they just obliterate themselves, right? We still need trees to have oxygen. We still need the sun to give us light. So when people, I think, get a little too intense about the patriarch needs to die, it's this understanding of the parts of the system that have become weak, tired, and are not holding up their energy to a positive form anymore for people to live in a more peaceful and harmonic place. That doesn't mean that the whole thing goes away, though, or that every word can't be used or something like that.
That's so sun opposite Uranus, of like either or, you know, of it's got to be all change means we just destroy everything. And I was feeling into this, like the rebel is a change. It's about being a change agent, but being a change agent doesn't mean that you just destroy or completely abolish. Like you're saying, that's not like change is it can be a simple reorientation, a reframe. It can be a simple like insert of a question that says, is there another way we could do this? That could change everything. One question, one innovation, one idea that actually just, oh my God. Like, because I'm not so narrowly focused on. So yeah, I think that that's so important right now, that it's not all or nothing. It's more about questioning, like being curious and asking if something's not working, there needs to be a change. But rather than fighting against something or needing to completely destroy it, can we invite in a reorientation? What needs to change? What needs to shift?
Well, the reason why I brought up the dinosaur like apocalypse is because when things do get destroyed, what came back? The trees come back. There's something about, like, no matter what you can try to destroy, God has some structures that are gonna pop back up. Like, you know, like even if you were to like cut your leg, your DNA is gonna repair and bring back that skin. You know what I mean? Like, so there's something about where people think like this whole thing is just obliteration completely. It's like, what do you think will come back again? Like, it'll be fresh now, you know what I mean? So that's what's great. I think that's what this is, but I don't think we also want to destroy everything to where it's like, wow, we're just going to go through like a nothingness, you know? Like, and I think that's been a pre-programmed fear through movies and television and books and so many things about this apocalyptic, but people can really buy into apocalyptic energy when we come into Scorpio with a Saturn and Pluto conjunction about to happen in 2 months exactly, and start actually becoming, you know, anarchy was really cool in the punk scene like 15, 20 years ago when I was younger, but now people can become almost like, yeah, I'm ready for apocalyptic, like if it's a new fad.
Well, it's like a bypass method, kind of, right? That you just can't.
This is a delicate matter, you know. Like, you know, when it reminds me of like when termites come into a house. You know, like I have a buddy who's been doing termite stuff for years, like decades. So like, you don't just destroy the whole house. Like, you repair the beams in the house and you keep the ones that are solid together. And you know, same thing with like viruses and so forth. Like, your body has an immune system that might only be attacking certain part. Your whole body's not under the attack of a virus. You know what I mean? Like, there's areas that it attacks, and your immune system and your lymph nodes go to that area of an infection, and they deal with that area, and then they clear that area, and then you're done. It's not like everything and we're done and blah. You know, this is not like lymphoma. Like, you know, like, I feel like people can start to take that, like, it's lymphoma and everything is completely done, you know?
Yeah, and I feel like there's something really important for humans to understand, that just because we're in a time of great change, it's not like a cataclysm is around the corner every day, every hour. And the more that we integrate these broader changes into our individual experience, like when we really participate and step up and say, like, let's say we're looking at the theme of corruption, which is in the stars this week, you know, we can dialogue with that in a way where we're dealing with corruption on a micro level that is actually supporting a smooth transition on a macro level. So the more of us that step up to look at those little holes in the greater grid of life and really do our part, so to speak, in just our own lives, like, okay, where is my corruption? Where am I corrupt? And what is keeping me from my true values, my true structure that supports my greatest expression of my light, creativity, and love in this life? then the burden isn't so great on the collective. Then it doesn't have to be some great crashing down of something, because we've all patched our individual holes in that scheme, and then we've re-supported it. So rather than falling and imploding into these catastrophic timelines that are actually pushed by perhaps, the more homogenized collective, mind camps or whatever, if we just deal with the brass tacks of what we have in front of us every day, who you interact with every day, who rubs you the wrong way every day, and take that pivot in those situations, then it doesn't have to be, the end of America, or like, any of this crazy stuff. It can just be, actually, we're all just creating those connections as we go. Yeah. And we're seeing the progress in a really beautiful way. So where is your mindset? Are you, even if you want that smooth transition, are you more on the thinking pattern of, oh, there's got to be a cataclysmic change or whatever to see change? No, we don't have to have that huge breaking apart to have that change, if we own up to it, if we show up for it.
And you can use that cataclysmic pressure to fuel your motivation and inspiration to do something here and now. So that's the other thing. It's like this all or nothing thing. That's where it's like, we don't do anything, because if I can't be this to do this big change, and we bypass the moment to moment, but it's like, actually, why don't we really acknowledge how fucking there is a lot of things to address, and there are a lot of problems, and there's a lot of potential cataclysmic change, but let's use that to motivate ourselves to show up in every moment. So be the one who shows up, and like you said, in the transgression with the person in front of you. And I kept getting the download when I was waking up today. It was like, it's time to elevate your fight. Elevate your fight. And when we elevate our fight, when I'm like, oh, let's elevate our fight, it's not just fight. We all have a fight in us. Let's fight. But rather than fight a person, let's fight for something bigger than that, and simplify it so much simpler. So it's I'm actually just only going to fight for what is good. And that's it. It's so simple. It's distilled so simply, and it's collectively the ripple is it's universal.
Hey, Jax, I want to ask you, because to me it's this energy, of course, is very kind of Tower card, Death card. So when you do readings in tarot, and is it really would you say a complete abomination of everything with those cards? Or maybe you can give us some insight through tarot and how you really read these energies when you see those, because I feel that's a lot of this energy that we're all feeling. And Justice card.
So for
I want to know
first of all, I've had the conversation of the Tower card for the past month straight, because my whole life has been the Tower card the past month, and in such a good way. There's engagement with the difficulty, the pain, and the challenges, but there's also more abundance and happiness than I've ever been a part of in my whole life. I would say the Tower card, literally 3 conversations I've had today were with people about how they're going through their Tower card moment. And what it comes down to is, you can either live in that tower and ignore the fact that the storm's coming, or you can get out of that tower, allow the storm to destroy the tower, and then start, using the materials that are left on the ground to build something that will stand. And maybe it won't have the same appearance that you originally imagined it, but it might be so much sturdier, rather than a long, tall spire, it's a pyramid or something. It's not going to blow over next time, So the Tower card is the most useful energy, because it means something's happening, and people think of it as just destruction. It's just this, this negative situation. If you get the Tower card, that means something bad's happening to you. It's no, it means you're finally doing something. You finally exist now. If you're in that state beforehand and you're just sort of locked in, nothing will change, and that's the enemy. Change is your friend. Change will help, that's how you grow. So yeah, I would say with all the quote unquote negative, tarot cards out there, but especially the Tower is coming up so much right now. And it's weird because a lot of people feel that they're willing to engage with the pain. Like they'll step into the Phoenix fire right now, but it's almost like they're going to feel embarrassed about dusting the ashes off of their feathers afterwards. Like that's the thing they're worried about. And it's like, right now is the time for you to be ready to do both, like to transform and to be okay with that, you know?
Yeah, and I always think with the death card, like, you know, it looks really deathly, of course, but there's always that sunrise on the other side, and there's always that, you know, beautiful element towards this new light that comes instantly at the time of a transformation in life.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like you transform and go into nothingness, like kind of like that whole state I get in Catholicism, which would be just like purgatory. Like, I don't think that like we're being gifted purgatory by changing.
Yeah, and I would say recognition of the death card is so important because like that's what frees you from the fear of death. Like all the characters in the death card, and depending on the tarot you're using, you know, they're like one person looks scared of death, the other person is trying to look away from it, the other person is trying to look directly at it. And it's like we've got all these different ways we can handle that, but once you allow yourself to accept that that's part of your life, then you're free from it. You know, then you're able to just like, you're able to truly live. You're able to finally, you know, feel who you really are.
I love that.
Yeah, that's so Saturn Pluto too. And being open to the gift of what's being lost right now in terms of, yeah, if there was a tower that you were living in and it was able to not withstand one storm, do you really want to live in that tower? Like, what kind of freaking tower is that? Like, what kind of life have we built if it is so unsturdy, unstable, unsustainable? And I think at this moment, it's like all of the things that are coming up are the things that, you know, compromise the stability and the sustainability of our structures of our lives and our relationships, whatever it is, however it's showing up. But it's like, be willing to let that die, be willing to let it fall, and be willing to start over so that you can start from this level of consciousness, from this level of perspective, from this level of growth where it's like a clean slate rather than a destruction. It's like, yeah, you get this opportunity. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to sit and be like, why is this happening? I don't want it to happen. It's like, or be like, okay, if everything in the universe, and I was thinking this earlier too, if we orient everything in terms of just asking ourselves, is this a friendly universe? Do you believe this is a friendly universe? Do you believe that? And we have to really ask ourselves that. And if we really believe that, that's being tested right now. Because if our ego structures have built up this form of what friendly looks like, or success looks like, or love looks like, and it's crumbling, it's like maybe something so friendly that loves you so much and so unconditionally, it's willing to like help you start over in a fresh way. I think it's like the ultimate restart.
Yeah, even to the point where we're rewriting our relationship with death itself, or the concept of death. I mean, with Scorpio new moon coming up with opposition to Uranus, right? And it's also in the human design body graph, it's in a beautiful channel with the 50th gate that we're having in the sun in Scorpio and the Uranus in Taurus. They're actually making a direct channel. And
Really?
And it's our channel of preservation. It's the channel that defines the values that we preserve our life force and our legacy and what we pass on to the next generation.
Is it throat to root or something?
No, it's you have this in your body graph, David. It's actually sacral to spleen.
Oh, gotcha.
So it's the energy of the life force itself empowering the awareness of what needs to change on a physiological survival level. How do we relate to death? How do we accept death? And how do we reintegrate the leftover energy, if you will, like the bricks from the tower, into creating structures that are sustainable and in the spirit of harmony? Because that's where the corruption is showing right now. Even on an interpersonal level, on a personal level, it's where are we standing in our own way in terms of our beliefs of actually creating this sustainability just based on what we believe on a day-to-day basis, based on the judgments that we make and the energy that we hold back from another based on our judgments. Like, that's where this change is either happening or not happening. And if you can look at those scorpionic kind of rub, almost like friction moments with people and how you want to withhold your energy because you don't believe in what they're doing. If you can really look at the root of that, I think that this is an amazing month through this transit through Scorpio to rewrite how we even deal with what we see as a threat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very, Uranus opposed the sun, I said tonight, is like the king and feeling like his whole entire, or the queen, her whole entire, constituents are against her, right? Like that's the negative formation of that, which goes into Sarah's notion is when you start to see things tumble in life, like, is this a friendly universe or not? Like, is this a friendly town that's, looking at me? Or is this like weird situations that are coming at me? And is it them? It's really like, no, like this is like about how you deal with how to navigate and rise to a higher level of understanding. Like it's like, and owning authority for what you say, owning what you've done, and being able to make good change off what's been done instead of sitting in guilt and all these kind of like old stories anymore. Like, I like how Sarah wants to bring a fight to all this stuff because it's like a fight towards more integrity, a fight towards more ownership of I'm making the change and I'm doing the change and I am the change and I am already initiated the change. It's already done. Instead of this behind the change. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. This is where it's like, what are you sitting behind and waiting on so much? Like, be the change, be in the change, and already be on the other side of it in the greatness. There's no more point in sitting around and waiting behind it all. And like always having this in front of you as this is this moment when finally I'll get to my greatness. It's like, this is where the greatness is here. This is where you can already be in it. And to use Jack's notion too, like, there's nothing to be embarrassed about because Pluto and Saturn are going to hit everybody differently. Mm-hmm. Like, this is not going to come around and destroy everybody's homes. This is not going to come around and destroy everybody's health. This is not going to come around and destroy everybody's this, right? Like, 5G will not kill everybody. But yeah, it will probably kill a lot. But you know what I mean? Like, it's going to hit everybody in a unique space of whatever Pluto Saturn does. So this is where you have to be very defined in knowing that you don't even really need to use any of these tools, but you can guide yourself really deeply right now and see internally what you know you need to change and what's your block from more happiness, for more love, because that's what Saturn and Pluto are demanding you to own integrity in and to transform and to bring about a better structure and a better way of owning the integrity and the power within yourself, that you make that choice within and do it. But a lot of people are right now behind that choice. And that's why I think that there's this shyness, because there's a shyness of, that's really intense. I'm going to make this change in my life. And there's also kind of like an attachment to, yeah, I feel safe not doing the change, and Scorpio is not going to come around this time and just be like, yeah, this is Halloween party and just put on your mask and have a good time with some candy. Like, this is not that kind of a Halloween energy.
Yeah, I have so much. I'm like, where do I start? I was actually thinking what you just talked about. I'm like, it all comes back to the reclamation of the death cycle. It all comes back to the reclamation of, like, yes, something's ending, or like there's a loss that needs to be accounted for and accepted. Like, where are we still fighting the loss? Either with resentment, with like by holding on to it, by blame, resentment, something of that nature, or hope, hope for, like, we're still holding on to the past. And I was contemplating grief, and I was like, we think grief is about the past. We think we grieve the past. But I was like, it's very interesting emotion, because grief happens when something in the present dies connected to the past. It has life, right? A whole life. And then it's gone. So really, are we grieving the past? The past is still there. We're still here. We're grieving the future. We're grieving the future that we figured was connected to that past, and we had this idea of what it was, and we were very clear, and so we're on this track, and then all of a sudden it changes and we don't know where we are, and we're like, oh my god, so something's wrong. we think we're grieving the past. No, we were just disillusioned about what the actual future was and what the actual bridge between the two is. And we don't know yet. And that's grief, is like that like deep unknown, that deep unknown, and that sense of like groundlessness. And right now there is a new bridge forming itself and showing itself. And you create that bridge through your own ability to look forward, to trust. And the fact that when you were looking forward and you were like so clear on what was possible, when something's lost, that's not lost. The bridge between the two might be lost. That they might not be as connected as you thought. But that doesn't change what happened. We don't need to rewrite the past, and we don't need to, there's just all of this non-doing actually that's happening right now. And yeah, I think it's really important that we're honoring let something go so the change can happen. The change already has happened. And if you're holding yourself in that, you're questioning the universe, you're questioning yourself, you're questioning it. And you can do that, but that's so painful, I feel like. And I just, yeah.
That's why I'm using the poker analogy of like, let's see the cards. You know, because it's like, it gets really annoying when you play poker. And everybody's played poker in their life, whether it was their grandma's house or everybody's played poker before. Maybe not everyone. This is where I'm going to show where blanketing is too much. But that's a whole nother thing. But the whole thing about poker is like when you're waiting for like everybody to place their bets on the last part and like reveal what you have, right? There becomes this part of poker where it's like, are you bluffing? Right?
Oh my gosh, wait.
So like everybody right now starts to look around and be like, is that person bluffing? Or is my cards really good enough? And this is where you have to really use kind of this really good intuition of being like, he's bluffing. I know I have a great hand. I have this. I'm confident in it. And we have to place our bet and we have to actually make a choice. And there's no bad choice here. If he wasn't bluffing or she wasn't bluffing, guess what? Maybe that was like, at least you made that courageous moment to make a change, and within yourself you realize, well, I don't really like poker, but at least I know I'm willing to show up and know my confidence. And actually in that moment you had a flash of where you're supposed to be. Or it's the opposite of like, yeah, boom, I knew my intuition was right, boom, and now I have that confidence. Right? You're still winning in either way, but you have to move forward in some sort of way. You have to make some sort of choice. You can't hang. And that's, I think, what Saturn's going to teach Mars in the square. Because this is going to be the first time Mars is squaring in Libra, Saturn in its home sign with Pluto in Capricorn. It's in 500 years.
Wait, I have like the best image when you're saying this. It's like this game of poker, right? Like us, we're all playing this game of poker. And we're like, I don't know, I'm like reading Jax's poker face, which I'm guessing like wouldn't be that good. I don't know. Maybe it would be great. But it doesn't matter. The whole point is it doesn't matter, because the whole thing is like, actually, we're trying to read the poker face of life. Like, look to the poker face of the universe, and I feel like the universe is laughing hysterically, like, you won. Like, you won. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. There's no, like, stop playing this game. Like, this is the Mercury Retrograde shit, where we're all like, we're in this game together, and we have to make sure that we check each other's poker face. It's like, that's not how this works. Like, let's stop playing that game. And the universe is like, has the worst poker face. It's hilarious. It's already predetermined. It's great. You won. The cards are shown. Let them show themselves. Like, move forward one step at a time. This Mars square Saturn is like, you don't have to have all the moves to know the end result.
Yeah, and I think there's this major temptation right now in the collective. A major temptation to, as you're looking at everybody's poker face and looking at your own hand, to think back to past poker games and the fact that you lost them and start to factor that in, whether or not you're going to lose this one. It feels like there's so many people right now who are weighing out whether or not they should carry this extra baggage and this extra, like they should be a scorekeeper for themselves, but only keep score of like the most like awful things they've ever done. And it's like, it's really important right now. Like, this is a new game. Like, this is its own game. Like, we're not going to repeat what happened last time. Now that we're in new territory, whatever, practice you've done over the weekend to study poker, like, it will pay off or it won't at this point.
I love that.
I want to say that it's not also the end all be all game where whatever happens at the end of this game is the result of your whole entire life. Like, I think because we're not there yet, so I think it's important to realize that this is a time for, before Mercury comes retrograde next week, like, what are you going to be re-examining? And if you really have been in a place of kind of, you've probably made moves in your life and changes, but if we are going to stay in a hung state, I don't know if we really want to come in to a Mercury retrograde in a hung state. I think you want to make your bets, you want to show your cards, and you'll use the Mercury retrograde to understand whatever it was.
Yeah, that's good.
Like, I think that, you know, this is like a time where there's just, and I'm going to just say this, and I said it tonight, but I'm going to say it in a different way. Uranus deals with people. It deals with connection. It deals with tribe. It deals with a lot of these things. And with it in Taurus and an opposite, the moon that is at fall in Scorpio with a new moon. So this is the only new moon that actually is technically at its fall position, where you can become emotionally attached to things and people that you feel like you are obligated to do things for, or save, or you know, even hang around that actually might not be conducive to what you're really trying to achieve in your life, where you're trying to go right now in your life. And you have to put up boundaries and say no. Like, and it's not even in like a harsh way. It's just like, do you even have to like text that person back that you just randomly met? Like, do you have to, if you get invited somewhere, do you really have to go? If you already made plans with people and they start acting weird, do you have to continue through the whole entire week of it? Like, I hate being in situations like that when it's like, oh man, I'm stuck in this for this. I remember, you know, I've learned to be like, yeah, this isn't working. Sorry, like, change of plans. And it's liberating. This is where liberation is going to take place, because it's going to show up in everybody's life somewhere, liberation. Like, you need to liberate somewhere. And you need to liberate yourself into a better, more quality, more beautiful world. But attaching to the non-liberating elements of your own obsessive nature, because really that's what it is. It's obsessive.
Control.
And yes, control big time. That's holding you out from an instantaneously beautiful world that is not something that is going to take a long time to show up. Like, it is instant. It is like, there you go. And I think it reminds me of the magician card. It's like, in order to be a magician, you must have, with one hand up, a connection to the divine, and then a connection down to whether we call this reality, and we are the conduit between that. And that's what a magician is. And I feel that at this moment, to be an ultimate magician, like, you can no longer just have one arm or both arms down in reality and be like, I'm not going to put my arm up into connecting and be connected to the universe anymore. Like, and continue to kind of do, well, I kind of want to just sit in the reality of this for a little bit, instead of like, what is spirit saying? What is spirit telling me to go higher right now? Like, a magician never does that. A magician doesn't go, you know what, I'm going to take off. You know, I don't think Merlin just sits around and goes, you know, I'm going to take off the hat, and I'm going to just go sit down and watch a bunch of Netflix and say, fuck reality or fuck spirit for a while. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because actually you start to deteriorate, and then coming back into it, now you're going to have to clean up a lot of mess because you just weren't in your alignment. You chose to get out of your alignment. And I feel that this is what scares me, and I don't want to project fear, but I am just somebody that's trying to put out a collective understanding of, like, do not go into redirecting your life, this transit of this week, into putting your arm down, or saying, spirit's trying to do this to me, but I don't want it, so no. That's very Scorpio, moon, sun, like, no, I don't want to. No, I'm going to have it. I'm going to keep it. But you're not even keeping anything. That's the funny part about Scorpio, is it owns a physical presence, ever. It can't. You can't own a person sexually. You can't own, that's why slavery's never worked. That's why it's so dark and so bad. Whether that's sex slaves or real slaves in life, like any kind of slavery element of, like, I'm going to hold you and I'm going to keep this, and spirit's telling me to not have it, but I'm going to have it anyway. I'm going to still ingest the poison. Thank you. And that scares me, because this is where a time where this is where people who say they're woke as fuck, woke as fuck, are like going to just come into this weekend like, it's fucking time to like liberate my own fucking party by turning off my fucking light. Like, is that how it works? Like, what if it's the flip now? We party by turning the light on and staying on instead of turning it off and tuning out. It's almost like the opposite of what Timothy Leary said. You know, he was like, tune out and tune in. But there's some part of us about, you know, tuning back to the universe and tuning back into this reality with this new beautiful energy. I think we did have to tune out kind of the paradigm. I think that the whole funny part is that the paradigm for decades has been shifting. It's not like it's just now. Mm-hmm. So it's like, we are switching some things. Like, is it really just because you had a long week that you just have to go to some sort of escape to get out of the light and crawl in the darkness? It's going to be a shift of ideas and a shift of ways of what you do with your energy and whether or not you can really have something beautiful or get lost in the underworld.
Scorpio and Pluto, as I've been rediscovering them in a new way that's perhaps a bit divorced from the traditional astrological view, is that Pluto can be this amazing force of like germinating our greatest gifts and plans. It can activate us on a deep level. And I think that a lot of people right now don't feel like they have the answers or the grounding, like that fertile field to say, yes, this is my new direction. I can go in this direction. Because with the looming fears that are presented by the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, there's this fear that we don't have the right structure or the right sustainable plan of action or the right ecosystem to support where we want to plug our energy into next. And so I just want to bring awareness to, yeah, you're going to feel this at this time. You know, the things that are actually keeping you small are going to feel the most sustainable. They're going to feel the most protected. And yet they're not going to be able to receive that amplitude that's actually going to catalyze you into where you truly, on a deep soul level, know you want to go. So with the Scorpio energy coming in with that same essence of Pluto, it's like, watch yourself. Just look at yourself. Look at your energy levels when you're in certain contexts. That is such a potent guide right now, I feel. Mm. You know, I've been hanging out with these people for years. They've been there for me this whole time. But when I'm with them, I don't have anything to say. I don't feel anything in my heart. It might feel okay, but is there that fertile vitality that can fuel a whole new spectrum of reality? Mm. No, I know that. Even if I don't know that, I can feel that. Yet maybe just for somebody, it's just like, okay, I go to the beach every day now. You know, I get on my bike and I go to the beach every day, and there I feel something I've never felt before. But that doesn't mean I'm going to have a new job because of that. That doesn't mean I'm going to have a new place to live because of that. So I don't know if I can trust that. You know, we're at this level where the 3D is not necessarily containing the truth that we really need to make this step forward. And as you did say, David, no, it's not the end of the game. It's not the end of the line, but it is the next step as we step forward towards 2020. And there is, you know, there's many paths to be had, and not all of those paths are going to lead you to a place where you feel really alive. But there's at least one. And maybe it's like, oh, I watered my plants today and I sung to my plants. Who knows what it is? Because we're in a multidimensional reality. So just by you activating one part of your life that might just be watering a plant or singing a song or going for a walk, that's actually on a dimensional energy spectrum, the seed of a whole new life that, yes, can be germinated in one season and totally sprout and have a whole new forest for you to walk through.
I love that. I think when you bring up, especially this Uranus' tribe and people, And I love how you bring up, maybe it doesn't bring up heart, but I also think it's like, are these people actually just containing the old story of myself?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are they containing connections to the story that I don't want to be in anymore? And that's why I'm actually in them. Because that's like this Taurus Uranian element is like holding on to, like a hoarder, energies of vibrations that you value through people, like, and almost accessing it through them. Like, it reminds me of, like, you know, I was a raver, and I was having an interesting conversation with my friend yesterday about, like, the Orange County rave scene and how it used to be all about there were so many hot people and we were all so fucking badass and all that stuff. And it's like, where did everybody go, you know? And then it was just kind of like, you know, but it's like, if I tried to go back to those people to hang out with, to reassess that part of myself, that was also when I was broke. I was not doing my light work. I was, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, that's not who I am anymore. And it reminds me of, we have to take a look at the 1930s into the 40s with Uranus in these opposite places. It was always at that weird fall time, like Hitler making the dumb decision of, like, okay, like, I'm gonna keep my German soldiers in Russia through the winter, right? Like, I'm gonna like I am smart. I'm gonna continue to do this radical idea. Like, they'll be okay. Like, no, that didn't go too well. And there was always those pivotal points during those times, and also when alliances changed, right? Like, we're not on the same vibration. Like, I mean, FDR going and hanging out with Stalin was a very, like, what kind of situation, even though that was Uranus Gemini. But still, there was the buildup to that process of, it was about who do you team up with to do the thing that must be done, right? Like, Stalin had to join forces with Churchill and with FDR because Germany was attacking him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and you would never expect those to come together, but that's what this is going to be about, is like, are you just going to what's comfortable and to what's natural but is an old story and actually is doing you harm? And there's something about this vibe with Venus Pluto sextile this week, because I love that you brought the Pluto element to this so deeply, is it's going to reveal what maybe you don't want to see about certain people. And instead of being grieving about it or staying on the other side again, just get on the other side and put the boundary up of, like, I'm not going through that and I'm done and I'm taking the bridge to wherever this is, like, that I want to go.
Yeah, I would say recently there's been a ton of guilt in the collective, or the temptation of guilt, where people are saying, like, you know, I kind of don't want to see my best friend anymore. You know, I don't want to see this person that I've been friends with for a really long time. And it's almost like people are trying to find ways where they can justify having this energy that they know is going to be oppositional in their life. And it's a really difficult thing to do, because, you know, you naturally would feel guilt just like leaving someone behind, but it's just the phase that we're in right now. We're just in this phase right now where we have to let some things go, and they might come back around again some other time, but it's just time to let those things go. And it's a scary thing to do, but, you know, a lot of people say, like, you know, they try and find ways to convince themselves it's fine. And I'm always just telling people, I'm like, just close your eyes and take 5 deep breaths, and then imagine that person's calling you. Like, what does your body feel like? And if your stomach gets queasy or you start to feel all this weird stuff throughout your body, like, you know that your intuition is literally trying to warn you to stay away from this energy, at least at this time. So yeah, it's like the quality aspect of Uranus and Taurus, where essentially it's like everything that we're attached to right now, we are assessing its quality. We're assessing exactly what it's made out of, and we have to allow ourselves to recognize the truth. It's not evil to not vibrate in the same way with someone anymore. You know, it's just what it is.
I feel like that is so imperative to touch on for this Mercury retrograde, because I feel like the image I've been getting is like we're breaking spells. Like Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, I'm like, we're about to break some serious spells, and it's conditioning spells, and the conditioning around codependency or around, you know, endings of things, around change, around moving forward, around following our you know, our true desires, and how does that affect everybody else, and always, like, you know, reading everybody else's poker face. And we're breaking those spells, and we get to give ourselves and everyone else permission to just be honest. Like, just be honest and be present to your life and be really living your life to the fullest. And like, don't make more meaning out of it than that. Don't attach that, like, you know, labeling it as like bad or against me. You know, I've been so feeling that too. And it's like, that's all story. That's all story that we're supposed to explain ourselves, or we're supposed to feel bad for that, but that's not serving anybody. And it's a spell. It's like, it's literally just a wiring in our mind. It's like, and right now it's coming up in this way that's like really uncomfortable, because I think it's working its way out. That's like, what's driving me to do this? What's controlling me? It's like a cultural psychic attack.
Well, it is the last month of Neptune retrograde on this new moon, because the next new moon is when Neptune becomes direct. And so in Pisces, this is really where we've gone past this halfway point of Neptune, because Neptune's going to stop at 15 degrees and come direct. So we're halfway through the Neptune and Pisces transit. So it's like, this is another kind of like new ball game, as far as like, we're at the upper echelons now of these really high vibrational frequencies, spells, cloaks, you know, subliminal patterns, shadow work, like, and Mercury retrograde is going to be aspecting Neptune. And then Mercury retrograde is going to be aspecting Pluto and Saturn multiple times. There's not bad aspects with this Mercury retrograde. It's actually very positive to actually reveal, okay, let me get rid of that. Let me restructure that. Let me change that. Let me see through the truth of that with my intuition. Like, and if you use this really properly, it's going to be amazing.
You can completely reprogram your entire
this
psyche.
Is definitely a defrag. This is definitely, it's an old Microsoft thing, but you know, this is definitely what defrag was. And actually, we can actually talk about this. Is like, when your data is stored on a hard drive, they just like throw that thing anywhere. Think about it. Like, a hard drive is just like a space where they're throwing data. It's not like they perfectly set the data like a Virgo. Like, I'm putting it on the shelf. Like, because imagine when you, like, let's say you start a business, and I used to be a parts manager. So you get the parts in, and then you have to put the exact part where the part number is, right? So it's like all perfect. But no, the computer doesn't do that. Like, it just is like, just throw it in there, like in the closet, and we'll get to it, and I'll find it, and I'll use the power of the processor to figure out where it was and remember where my one pair of shoes are that I threw in that corner, you know? But then eventually, that's when you start to see your computer, after you put so much data on there, what happens? It starts to run slower, because now the mind's going, okay, so I put that on top of that, and now I'm going to have to remove that box that I put that shoes on top, and then I threw my cat on top of there, and like, you know what I mean? Like oh, I got to remove all that. So what defrag does is, it was an old program that actually said, okay, you're not going to be able to use your computer for a minute, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to compress all this data, I'm going to organize all this data and put it in the corner and put it all nicely neat, so I know exactly where to go now for all that stuff, because we're at a time to where we need a defrag.
Oh my God, that is so incredible, because I've been having literally the image of like the work I've been doing on reprogramming through the shadow work, through the, you know, the mind work, the mindfulness work, working through that. And now, right now, it's this point where it's like, there's not something to rework, but it's something to apply, where it's like, I've already done it, and now it's time to really organize it and be like how are you fetching the data you've already done, the work you've already done to like transform that belief, or to bridge that, you know, from unconscious to conscious, to make that change. How quickly can you access that data, so that you don't have to go do the deep work every single time that unworthiness comes up. And it's so beautiful, because it's like, holy shit, if you've been doing the work, it's so like, just for a moment, pause. And like, when all this stuff comes up, be like, I've done this before. I already have the tools. I already know what to do. And if you don't, then you have to start building that foundation. You have to start building that foundation of like, how do I approach this in a way that doesn't just try to, because it's collectively what's happening, right? Saturn, Pluto, everything's coming up. It's like the eruption of the unconscious, of the repressed material that we've been pressing down. And that's how we've been able to get as far as we've got. It's like, I just ignored it long enough. It was fine over here. And now it's not working. And it's like coming up, and we're like trying to shove it down with like a little brother, like, stay down.
Well, that's what fragmentation is, right? It's like a splitting of a bunch of energy all over the place. So defrag is defragging it, right? And defragmentation. I wanted to say this. It's like when you have that whole thing where it's like somebody calls you up, it's like, hey, so you have that one, CD or whatever that you have. You're like, oh yeah, I know it's in my bedroom. Yeah, it's like in that drawer or whatever. And then the whole time your mind's like, it's in the drawer. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. How much time are you going to spend on the drive to your house? And then you get there and then it's not there. And then now you spend all that time thinking about something that wasn't there. And now you're trying to find it now. And now that's when it goes, now you're using all your processing power on something that you were already wasting so much time on that wasn't there. That it's like waste of mental space on freaking out, stress, all this stuff of investigation, of trying to find things. And it's like, because things have been fragmented, we have to not feel bad, because this has been a major process of breaking things that were apart that needed to be apart. It's like the tower. When it falls, there's going to be splinters of tower and shingles and stuff, right? So it's like defragging is just kind of like, okay, I'm going to move all the shingles over there. I'm going to move all the wood pieces over here. I'm going to move all the like furniture pieces over here and see like what I have here. At least I know where everything's at. And I don't need to be this crazy detective anymore being like, do I have enough furniture to rebuild a couch? I don't know. I'm going to think about this all night and all morning and all day. I'm going to think about it all week and on. Instead of just like, let me go restructure it now. Let me go redefine it. Let me go see what's there. And
handle it.
Just handle it, yeah. And I think that we've all been through a lot of fragmentation, like split apart to be brought back in, which is the whole idea of life itself, the conception of the understanding of like being brought from the ethers into the solid state and then redefining and coming back up into the ethers, which we do go through a fragmentation and then into a defrag again.
I think there's a huge piece about, within all of this, about becoming really aware, especially in Mercury Retrograde in Scorpio, of where we're investing our psychic energy. And I think that there are so many wide open traps that are set for us in this reality to just be plugged in. And then that plug-in actually is routing a particular neurological net in our physical brain that keeps us coming back for more and keeps coming back for that hit for more. And yet when we look from an expanded perspective at what we're investing in on a daily basis, we see that 9 out of 10 of these pursuits give us nothing back, give no refertilization to the soil of our life, but rather are just kind of using us for a purpose that we're not even a part of. So I think it's really important for people in general to, release the guilt, release the shame, because that's just practicality at this point. If you're guilting and shaming yourself, you're getting in your own way of this defragmentation process of like, where do I invest my energy and why am I even here? Like, why am I really here? And if it's not something that's paying you back, if you're not literally getting the payback or the payoff from that investment, then you should seriously consider why you're even there in the first place. Even if it makes you alienated from a whole group of people that you find a sense of identity with. And I think that's another huge thing that we're going through right now is we're losing our sense of identity, especially in the West, where we don't have a culture to hold us together. And in that fragmentation of our identity, we're so desperate to find things that can be a reflection of ourselves, that we can find some kind of certainty in. And we need to look at that very squarely and just look at it like a square in astrology, just like, whoa, why am I even here? And that's where so much change.
Yeah, is that my path? Like, is this my path, or is this just some subpart distraction trap of pulling me off my path, which is an illusion of that my path is horrible or my path is not worthy enough and good enough, that I need this thing that is not really connected to me.
And I'm sure everyone listening to this right now and that will watch this can think of at least 5 things that is represented by this. Social media, whatever.
You know what else I think is a good tool or like task or challenge or experiment? You can know if what's driving you is that compulsion, addictive brain. Like, it's not even conscious. You think you're going into that because you think you want to do it, but like, do you actually know? Well, the best way to do that is to like just make the decision to not go in. you know, to just not go there, and then watch how many times the mind wants to take you there unconsciously, and it reveals itself in this way where you're like, holy fuck, why am I doing that? When is that happening?
Right.
And you start keeping these tallies on like,
and you're like, whoa, that was a control mechanism.
yes, complete control.
That wasn't
over
even me. That
It
was
my
never
mind.
me. So
That's where I think signs come in. I mean, right? Like so I channeled this
Yes.
week that there are synchronicities that look like they are, but they can also be false. We can create our own
totally
like self synchronistic
Validating,
that are
Affirming
cloned
it.
or I like a counterfeit.
Looking for what you
synchronicities.
want to see.
Yeah. And then there's ones that are just undeniably, emotionally, overwhelming wows. Like, wow. But I think they have to match with reality. I think it's like, did that also mean that it would work in my reality? Because we can have lots of synchronicities, but does it actually match too with the other side of synchronicities of it formulating in reality? And I think that that's something that we have to pay attention to, that's a grounding point. There's something about Saturn and Pluto too that reminds me of a grounding point, because even though it's technically a negative, right? Every sign is negative, then positive, negative, right? Negative is grounding. Mm-hmm. And so this Saturn and Pluto is asking for like, is it grounded?
does it make you say, oh shit?
Yeah.
Does it really make you question it?
Because when you take a battery off in a car, like you know, the main one is the ground you want to pay attention to, because like if that ground's in, like when you put the red one on, like it will, but if the ground's off and you put the red one on, it won't do nada. You know?
No idea.
Nothing.
Totally.
So if you don't have a grounding point of these synchronicities and they actually won't make sense in your reality, and you're having to jump through crazy hoops that I think that Uranus and Taurus can try and do with the opposition of the sun and the moon in Scorpio being kind of like, well, I'll have it anyway, and I'll jump through wild, crazy hoops. I'll use every tool in my tool bag and fucking like, you know, go through and try and build this crazy radical thing. And it does it. Part of Scorpio is about learning to attract. It should just kind of naturally find a way to come in, naturally find a way to, you know, embed itself within, like it's comfortably like a baby, and how it like perfectly fits in a womb, you know? Like there's something about that synchronicity also has a physicality of its
Like
order.
how it lands.
Yeah, it's order. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or like how a cat, like, you know, I throw my cats in the air all the time. Like, you're gonna land on your feet. You know? Like
That's so great.
But you know what I mean? Like it's like there's also this common knowledge of grounding of like, but there's a lot of trickery with, oh, I see this synchronicity here. It has to be, I think, an overwhelming amount.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of that right now, especially with synchronicities that supposedly are for rekindling relationships, because that's the number one thing. I had someone message me and they were like, you know, oh my gosh, I found this feather, so it's so clear that this person's going to text me back after it's been about 6 weeks. I'm like, why would the bird give you its feather for that? Like, for Kevin to text you back or whatever? Like, are you kidding? Like, the bird sacrificed a feather. Like, that's not what the sign is for, okay? Like, it's not like I'm the you know, the person who decides what all the signs and synchronicities are, but I very strongly doubt it's for something that relies on like that neurotic behavior pattern of waiting for that person from so long ago to come back. Like, you know, it tends to be positive things. Like, it tends to be good things that like sort of you grow and prosper, and waiting for Kevin to text you back will never be that thing, you know?
But also, this is so funny because I will never forget, there was one time where I was like potentially going to move, and I went to this apartment, this viewing, and I was like, I mean, I was like, I'm open, you know, like I'm always like, I'm open, like you can show me a sign. And if there's a sign, like I'll take it. And I go to this apartment, and there's like the like rug or something in the bathroom was the same as like the underwear print I was wearing. And I was like, I'm going to need a way bigger sign than that. I just like flat out said that because I didn't like anything else about the apartment. I didn't like the area. I didn't like the vibe from the guy. And I was like, I could make that into a sign, but I was like, if that's your sign, the all omnipresent universe.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can do better.
There's no reason you can't ask for more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also trying to prove to others signs, I think, is a bad thing too. Right? Like, see, like, you do you not see? 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 It's like now you're forcing kind of like you're like
Interference.
taking chords and like of synchronistic aspects and creating like Geppetto, like Pinocchio, and being like, this will turn real. Well, no, the fairy godmother will do that.
Yeah.
Right.
If it's really anomalous, it'll speak for itself.
Yeah.
If it's really a rare combination of signs, it will be visible even to non-believers, if you will. You know?
Yeah, that's a good point. I was getting so
Yes.
many downloads about Mercury retrograde with Spirit was giving me football metaphors. It was so funny. It was like past interference is like a thing. Yeah. But the difference between
I'll talk sports with you. Yeah, there is pass
the
interference.
difference between pass interference and an interception, and how like
And just playing defense, like just guarding and just blocking the ball.
right. But so it's important to be mindful of like what is a pass interference and like how can something kind of get, you know, that we talked about this I think a couple weeks ago with Mercury being the messenger and how it's like the journey of the messenger carrying the message from Jax to me to you. It's like playing telephone, right? And there's like this pass interference in between, but we're just like taking that message. It's like, oh, that's the message. And it's like, it doesn't tune quite right. Like it sounds a little bit like fuckery.
This is where I want to say this last part about the false synchronicities. Because Jax made a very, very clear point that actually can be turned for the best, but also the worst, which is that it's obvious to people who are non-believers, is all the setups of what we've been seeing in media about culture, politics, conspiracy elements, the weather, the food, the system. It's almost like dominoes for this synchronistic event to try and say, don't you see, this is how it was all leading up, but it was all preset falsely to have you totally be like, yeah, that's the synchronicity. I guess we must do this. That humanity right now is being given the most false synchronicity setup ever. That is what Mercury conjunct Saturn, Pluto will be with the sun at the same time.
On the ascendant.
Right. It's not what it seems. And you're going to have to go and synchronicities are beautiful. Not look at, sure, signs that are negative are, I think, much more like, it's just like, yeah, this just doesn't vibrate and that's it. Like, it's not like this, see, and I knew they were always sneaking around and I always saw them on their phone and I always saw them. But right, when you start pulling those negative dark synchronicities, it always leads to an unhappy moment and then a grieving moment and a envy or a jealousy or a dark vibrational thing. That's not where we want to lead this whole thing to. And I think that that's kind of the agenda against humanity right now, is like leading it to this, like, see how freaking fucked up this is. And this is the way to fix it. And this is the synchronicity of where it should go. I think that that's going to be the hardest thing for people to realize, like, there is a way to do this through love and positivity and let's actually see, like, is this really what that is? Like, is that really, like, because that's almost like somebody trying to, like, it reminds me of really cheap psychics who run at you at the mall, like, oh my gosh, like, you're going to go through this right now and everything, but like, you need to talk to me and I need $50. Like,
well, so it's still external validation though. Synchronicity validates like an internal resonance that you were already. So I think it's also
there's shadow
yourself.
Synchronicity.
Yeah, and it's playing on a moment of weakness. It feels like the false synchronicity comes down to you're with me or you're against me. That's basically the statement that sums up everything that's happened since like 2016. You're on the left or you're on the right. You're a man or a woman. Like, you're like, everything is literally being so falsely divided that we're unable to see that there was been a really long period of time where we actually were able to talk to each other, where we could like understand and entertain the thoughts of other people. But now it's very much like, you're on this side or you're on that side, and that's a lie.
That in
It's
and
a
of
lie.
itself is
It's
the past interference. That's the ultimate corruption.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate corruption.
Yeah.
That we aren't questioning the fact that, like, that is the actual interference.
It's like the
or
dark
that's-
side of Pisces. That's what it feels like. It feels like that's the polarity there. Like, it feels like it's just about to come to a head. And like once it gets to that point, then it's going to start with conversation, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Which is blindness,
So
unconsciousness, which was the whole age of deception of the last age, which was, you know, through religion, through so many different beliefs. Like, I mean, they literally were on a, like, let's see where we can take them this century. You know what I mean? Let's see where we can go with this century. And then so everybody's then like trying to go back to like where they feel secure and safe. Like, well, scripture says this, and I hold this scripture, and that's what it is, and I will not budge. You know, like, whoa.
I feel like if a solution that's being presented doesn't involve nature or your nature, it needs to be deeply questioned, and it needs to be critically questioned in the moment. I feel that anything that's asking you to build upon something else that someone else is feeding to you is probably corrupt to its core. And these are all around us in every area of life, from what we hear to what we speak to what we exchange to what we feel that we rely on. And this Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, as benevolent as I feel it will be, I think this is a great moment for us to hold space enough within ourselves to look directly into these things that are coming at us and have that scorpionic grit to question them. And when we can have enough space and enough, even if it's just a couple milliseconds in our mind to be like, I don't know about this. You know, it's not just a pure reaction. I go, oh, that is the space in which real change, real revolution happens. That's the potential that's coming at us right now. So just be ready to question and be ready to make a critical divergence from what's being offered as your only options, and be ready to trust yourself enough to take that other route on a split second's notice. That's just channeled.
That was perfect.
That's beautiful. I was going to say that also with the synchronicity thing, it just is a natural, you're not looking for it. Like, it just is popping up, and it just is like, you're not even in that space. Like, you're not looking at all. Your mind isn't even, actually your mind's not involved until the very end of, like, after it all, oh, I've computed all that. Wow. You know, instead of like, where is it? Like, where is it? Oh yeah, I just saw it there. You know, it's like,
It
no.
reveals itself to you.
It's like how a deer pops up in the woods out of nowhere, right? Like when you're not expecting a deer to pop up. Or like how, you know, a moment of when you finally let go of something, right? Like when I went through my divorce, and it was a very hard moment, and I said this, it was like I was just like crying, and I had so much, I went and got an electrolyte. People have been asking me, what's electrolyte? I'm like, it's adult Pedialyte. And I was in my Corvette, I had the top off, and I was crying so hard that I had to go get an electrolyte at a 7-Eleven by the beach. And literally I was like, God, I'm just, whatever it is, like I'm just ready to release. And the earthquake happened. Like the last thing I was thinking in my life was the earthquake. And there was that synchronicity of kind of like, I wasn't looking for that.
Right.
And it was kind of like, you're going to be okay. And I remember screaming like, yes. And everybody looked at me like I was crazy.
But then it's like when those things happen, when I've noticed too, because I've been watching myself without realizing it. Now we're talking, I'm like, I've been watching this. When that happens, and then I'm like, I don't know. I wonder what that could have been. And it's like, it's so obvious. It's so obvious. It's so obvious.
What it brought me in that time was people were freaking out, and I was watching all the street signs and all the power lines and the poles making creaking noises, and that was a roller, so the streets were rolling, and there was so much peace in the middle of all that, like that it was like such a divine sign from God that was just overwhelming, that I had nothing else to say except that. There was nothing else to continue to look at. It was an all-knowing. It was like I didn't need to question it anymore. It was like, that's set. And there's something about the Egyptians with the, Lord Set and the sun setting, and it's just being the day is over, and they say that goes down to nighttime where Set rules the night, but that's where we get the term sunset, right? So there is something to say about just putting things to bed. Like, that's done, that's set.
And Libra is the image of a sunset. I just learned this on an interview with Philip just yesterday. And Libra's about to set.
That's why there's that little hump.
And we're about to set into Scorpio. We're about to go from sunset. So let it end, and then you'll go into the underworld. You'll see all of the underworkings, but like, it's already done.
Yeah, and it feels also like when it comes to that synchronicity you were talking about of the earthquake, it's almost like there doesn't always need to be a beautiful explanation. Like sometimes you don't have to have the perfect everything figured out. Like back to the magician card from way earlier, the magician isn't so powerful because he memorized every word of every book. He's so powerful because he embodies the air, the fire, the water, and the earth. He embodies it. He's imperfect, and he allows himself to connect the divine to the earth by just being those elements. Like, he just is magic. You just are in a synchronicity. You're in the earthquake, literally. Like you're there, and you're just part of it. And if you're just paying attention to what's happening, then the signs will speak for themselves.
Yeah, and there's the rod that the magician holds too. On both, is it both sides or only? I think it
depends on the card.
Depends on the card, but I think in the Rider-Waite it's the rod to divinity that you connect. That's where you use your magnetism, and then there's the electrical element of kind of the reality of like your. That's why I always say it's like humans are a fuse. A fuse connects, in a fuse box in your car or whatever, it connects a fuse to a positive and a negative, and if the fuse pops, like the lights won't work, or that won't work, or like you have to go to a fuse box. Like, why are the lights working in Jurassic Park? Like, damn, Samuel L. Jackson's like, damn, the fuses are all out and popped. We need to go reset the breaker. I feel like being the magician is like, I am totally connecting the whole force, and I am also in a state where I am fully divinely connected, and I'm not fucking with this fuse and turning it on and off so much where it'll pop. Like, being magic only in certain moments, or turning that off, because if you pull the fuse in and out, or you fuck with the fuse too much, guess what happens? It'll pop. And I think a magician just has to hold the space of connecting to the divine to hear and be like, you are magic, you are in it, you are in the reality, you are in the spirit world at the same time, and you are a channel of both, in and out. You are a in and out reflection of that. Just you are the cycle of the universe is cycling through you constantly.
And like, I feel like you can also trust that if you're not in alignment, you will be shown. Synchronicity works both ways, and rerouting us, when we're not in alignment, and showing us when we need to go towards something. And I think it's also being open to when we're being rerouted the other way. I can think of so many times in my life specifically where I was like, what the hell? Like, no, this is not right. And I look back and I'm like, oh, thank God. Like, it makes so much sense. So there's a synchronicity on both sides of that. And like, suddenly it goes out and changes you in direction. It's like, you can take that as a synchronicity as well. Like, oh, that must mean I just need to start again. Like, wait, maybe if the computer just like isn't working right now, rather than like trying to make everything go and force it and plug it in here and maybe it's time to take a walk. Maybe that's a synchronicity,
Yeah, I think that's a synchronistic moment for us to cut to a quick break for our final thoughts. That'll come right after this. So make sure you stay tuned. We're going to have our final thoughts here on After Dark. So this video is going to give you the tools, it's going to give you the steps, it's going to give you the questions for you to ask yourself, to prepare yourself. It's going to give you my opinions on what best course of action to take. And you can take it, or you can leave it, or you can take parts of it or none of it. To me, as long as you're willing to listen, as long as you're willing to hear me and take it in and ask those questions, do you want to be in it or not? Like, that's what the call is. And that is, I think, the deepest part of this energy is when people start going, I want the energy to go back to normal. You want the energy to go back to where you don't have to participate in anything anymore. And you just want to go sit back and watch the whole show. And guess what? The universe is giving you that opportunity here as the build up to 2020. But do you really want that in your life? Is that really, but I'm not saying, maybe I'm saying that because I'm somebody who feels that I don't want it, I don't want that. So I can't judge you for being in that space. But I can tell you from an astrological point of view that sure, it might feel more comfortable to be in that space, but there is going to be something of not being fulfilled. Welcome back to highvibe.tv, and make sure that you get that pre-2020 preparation video about how to align yourself to prepare yourself for this big conjunction here in 2020. And there's a lot more, the eclipse cycle and so much more, 2.5 hours long. You can get it at highvibe.tv. It's on the front page. So we're here with the High Vibe crew on these final thoughts, and I just thought maybe, I don't know if there's really a question. I just think everybody should just kind of throw out their last thoughts here, where things are at, or feelings. Fuck thoughts.
For me, it honestly, it connects to everything we've been talking about tonight. We've talked about, how you don't need to carry that weight of guilt. We've talked about the rebirth process. We've talked about the destruction and what that looks like and feels like. To me, it's about right now, it's so important to be free, because you know that will bring you joy. You know that being free is the same exact thing as being honest. If you're being honest and you're saying what it is you desire out of life, and you're doing what it is you desire in life, and not doing whatever you want, which is what a lot of people counter to that. They say, you should just do whatever you want. It's like, no, do what you actually want. Like, do what you literally want to invest your whole life in. Even if it's something that seems archetypally silly, like being a painter or something. It's like, that's not a sign of laziness or stupidity. It's like, if you want to become a painter, you have to learn how to paint. You have to learn how galleries, accept artwork or don't, what the likelihood is and how the industry works. There's so much to learn. So now's the time to not just do whatever you want, but do what you actually want and be honest about that. And it'll finally free you. You'll be able to take on so much responsibility that will just turn into so much magnetism and so much excitement and so much abundance. Like, the responsibility isn't going to stress you out. It's like pretending that you're already responsible is stressing you out. Pretending that 9-to-5 job in that particular area you hate, that's the thing that's stressing you out, and it's slowly consuming you. And instead, you should be the one that consumes the positive things from the universe. It's like what Dylan was talking about with, just the mindless apps and different things that we consume. We're always going to be consuming something. So ideally, it should be that which is divine to us, that which is just makes our heart happy.
Final thoughts. Be willing to go on an adventure. Be willing to leave the comfort of your social groups, your thought families, your normal ways of consuming and releasing. Be willing to take a bold risk from your spirit. It's not a bunch of different risks. It's not a haphazard risk like, oh, I've never gone to that bar down the street from my house. I'm just going to try that. Like, no, this is like something that's showing up in your life. It's already fully formed. It's beckoning you to you in some way, shape, or form. And it's asking you for a deeper participation because it's a deeper reflection of who you really are and who you came here to be. That's the prime real estate for your investment at this time. Also, be willing to question your triggers. Be willing to question anything that gets a strong force of judgment or ridicule or resistance, especially resistance. If you're feeling resistance to something, that might be hiding where mastery lies for you. especially in Scorpio. So be willing to, go into that deeper water, into that darker stretch of the forest, and know that you're held in your journey. You're allowed, and it's your birthright to trust in life itself, not individuals, not people to be there to protect you or hold you up, but life itself, the force of life itself. You deserve to be able to trust in that. And this is a prime time to move in that direction. So I hope you will.
I would say be willing to feel. I like how you changed it last minute. I think be willing to have this kind of confidence, to like lean into whatever feelings arise, and to not let the feelings override you and drive you and hook into the mind and begin to create story and meaning and get lost, and then all of a sudden you're drowning. But instead to like lean into it and let it fuel you in a way that when it hooks into the mind, and you see that when you're actually allowing yourself to feel something, and you're not saying, I'm not allowed to feel this, or I don't want to feel this, or I need to be feeling something else. When you actually let it come in and you don't have an antagonistic relationship to it, you're like, I'm here, what's going on? And you listen to it without making the meaning. Then when you hear the bullshit in your mind that's driving that story, that's driving that unworthiness or that guilt, then you have the consciousness. We've already been woken up. So question it. Insert that, moment of a question to say, is that true? And like, am I willing to just believe that and just buy into that and just sit here and let this be it? And also like, let yourself feel the extremes, let yourself follow what really fuels your joy. Take a risk on what you're like really excited about, but you have no idea. It's totally new. We're so afraid of death that we're trying to make sure that we do everything we can to make life work. So we'll go to joy just to this level. But I think this is a time to really test out the waters of receiving and take risks, because remember your soul, remember your immortality. Like, be all in.
Yeah, I feel like this risk is about trying to find, not even trying, we'll find true fulfillment of the emotional stuff that you really want to have in your life. Like, if you're not going to go on the adventure and you're not going to go through the fear, which is an illusion, then you're not going to receive anything, and then you're going to feel empty. And this is a time to not allow emptiness to become our story. And that's where I bring up the shyness of this Mercury and Scorpio. You think it's very bold, but it's not that bold when it's got Venus conjuncting it right before the retrograde. It's got these inner feelings, these inner desires, these inner things that it's got Jupiter right next to it in semi-sextile being like, yeah, I guess we do have to go explore it, but there's a timidness, right? Like, because Scorpio is not the mighty explorer of the outer realms so much. It's only of the inner realms. So we can sometimes just explore it in our own self, in our own psyche, in our own, personal way. I mean, that's what people masturbate, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're just doing it in your own world. So it's like there's something about experiencing also the outer of Taurus, and to feel the physical elements of life and its beauty at the same token of what your inner world is wanting to feel so bad. But if you're not willing to realize that even at the beginning with Mars square Saturn, it is going to be like somebody who's never been on a boat or is afraid of going on a boat or water, like taking that step slowly onto the boat and kind of like getting onto the boat and then sitting down, and then at the beginning of the boat it might be a little weird and you're gonna have to break through this uncomfort, but there is something about that you did it, and that gains momentum, and that gains confidence, and that gains integrity in yourself, and you find ultimate beauty in that now, and confidence. Like, confidence right now is the beauty within of taking a step towards something. And I think that this is where we can find a synergy of the inner and the outer together. And I think that we're all over some very deep outer things, and we're over a lot of inner things that we're not feeling. So it's like, let's get rid of the outer things we don't want. Let's bring out the inner things that we do want, and let that be a fulfilling position, and let that be an expedition, and that be an experience. And let that be things that break through and liberate us to getting rid of things that have felt stagnant or stuck or not connected to the divine and to the beauty and to a lot of things. And I think that there's a humbleness as well with Chiron and Aries in, this really weird, actually this is going to be a, a quincunx with the sun to Chiron and the new moon. And they're both Mars ruled, Scorpio and Aries. So, the humbleness of allowing yourself to take a step and to take action from a pure state and from an emotional state and from I don't really know how it will look, and that's okay. I don't know how it will exactly define itself, but it will be an understanding of, I know how it will feel, and I don't know how that will look, but I know how it'll feel. And that's okay that you don't know how to look. It's okay for you not to run your mind and start being like, well, how is that going to look? And how's that going to look? And how's that going to look? It's like, no, let's let the feelings define the story. Let the love define the story. Let the manifesting go forward, and let the generator just generate the manifesting the way it naturally is supposed to be, instead of putting the generator before the manifester.
Sounds good.
That was my final thought. And at the end of the day, I think that we all become the reflectors at the end of this whole thing.
I'm like, where?
Yeah. Well, no, I think that the projectors are guiding us to how to be better reflectors individually,
And connect with your family.
Yeah.
Connect, have gratitude.
Yeah, so.
Share space, yeah.
Well, thanks for being a part of High Vibes After Dark. Thank you all. Thank you, Dylan, the Spirit Advisor. You can find him. All the links for the Instagrams are down below. We also have Jax Atlantis. We also have Sarah Paasch. And follow us on High Vibe TV and get the apps. They're free, of course, but we'd love for you to subscribe. You can subscribe now through the Apple Store and through the Google Store. And we have a lot of cool functions that we just brought out, and we have even more coming out just even tomorrow. So we appreciate you all. I appreciate you all for being here. And thank you all very much. We'll see you on the next After Dark.
Aho.
Yo, yo.